I very much enjoyed their presentations. I was interested to see Ken gave a very excellent overview of the management of NGOs and their development. And Roberto took a narrower but very important view of volunteering. I'm going to do the same thing and take a narrower view myself. I'm going to look at building a team, and to make organizations work and to make departments within organizations work, it is essential to have a very effective team. If one can create a team that works with you, you can really make a big difference to organizations. You should see 3 key steps at the moment. So most times, you do not have the luxury of building your own team. We become managers or we become leaders, and we have a team of people that already exist. Those people have history within the organization. Some of them are excellent people, some of them are not so good, and some of them are really poor performers. And these people I've called zombies. Our natural inclination is to ignore those people and to work around them, to bring in other people and to ignore the people who don't work well. And my real point here is that these people should not be ignored. We should deal with the zombies. If we can do this, if we can actually make a difference, either by bringing them up in the world to make them perform properly or getting rid of them, that will make the whole team work better. The second part of what I'll talk about is recruiting professionally. It's so easy just to bring on board somebody you've met before, somebody you know and like to work with, but that will not give you your dream team. And lastly, when people do come on board, inducting them properly is terribly important. It makes the whole thing work. When you first start a job, the first day in that job, the first week in that job is terribly important. That sets the tone for you. It sets the feel of the job, and it really makes you work well, or it puts you off the organization you've just joined. And then leading that team becomes very important. And Ken has spoken a little bit about this. So we will go in a little way. Let us talk about the zombies. You will find people in your team who have been there for a long time. And these people are quite hard to shift. They're used to working in a very slow way or a very poor way. They're used to underperforming. And they may well have a lot of contacts in the organization. But what happens is, if you have somebody in your team who is not working properly, it affects everybody within that team. So the whole team is dragged down by that individual. But if you, as a new leader, as a new manager of that team, works with that person and either brings the person up so that you develop them, so that you make sure they can do their job and you manage them properly, or you get rid of that person, you sack them and bring somebody else in, you will find the whole team will begin to work better. And they'll work better because when one person is not performing, that team will say, why should we work so hard if this person is able to get away with doing that? So I had a friend called Norma, and she became the director of an organization. And within one of her teams, the head of communications was a zombie. But the zombie had been there for a long time. And when she sacked that zombie, the board he appealed to and the chair of the board reinstated him. So she lost the ability to control the organization. And she resigned. It was untenable for her to sack somebody and have them brought back. So the key thing, if you're going to make a move against a zombie who's been there for a long time, make sure you have people behind you. Make sure your manager, your leader, your CEO, is behind you, make sure the chair of the board is behind you before you make your move. And we call that London rules. There are lots of books in England about spies, and often they talk about London rules or Moscow rules. London rules is watch your back. So if you're going to deal with a zombie, the first thing you do is to challenge them. You say, I'm sorry, but this work you're doing is not good enough. And you give the reasons why it's not good enough. And then you set tasks for them. You say, by the end of next week, please will you do this? By the end of this month, this is what you should be doing. So you're showing and demonstrating to them what they should be doing. And if they fail to do that, you look at their training. Do they need training? Are they wanting to do the work but can't do it? Do you need to explain the work in more detail? Have they not understood what to do? And if at the end of that training, the end of your effort, you realize that person is never going to change, then it's time to get rid of them. In England, that's quite hard to do. Organizations are scared of getting rid of people. But if that person is no good, and if that person doesn't perform, then you have to take those steps of getting rid of them and firing them and hiring somebody else. And once you do that, then you'll find that that whole team responds to you. So that is a key element of building your dream team. And that's the London rules. Watch your back when you do this. The next part of building the dream team is to look at hiring people, taking people on board. And in this, you shouldn't use the old boys network. It's so easy for us just to bring in people like us. Maybe people who've worked before, people we know well, but that doesn't give you the range of opportunity to find those people who are really good at their job, who might be better than the people you know, who you might get along with better than the people you know. And to do that, there are stages really to go through. I'll outline one set of steps, but you may choose to do slightly different steps. Always, I have a job description. I know what I want that person to do, and I spell it out, because that means I can hold them to doing that work. I have a person spec. What kind of person am I looking for here? What are the qualities that I really want? And then I recruit to those qualities. I advertise very widely to get the best possible sets of people on board within that team. And sometimes this means you have to advertise in new areas, places you haven't done that before. And advertising costs a bit of money, but it's well worth it at the end of the day. We build up from that a shortlist from the people who apply. And from that shortlist, we interview maybe 4, maximum 6 people, just a handful. But the people who make a decision about this shortlist should not just be you on your own. If you involve your team and you get your team with you, you will find they have some great ideas about the kind of person they want to work with and the skills they think that person should have. When you interview the last set of people, it's good to have a diverse panel. People from, you need different genders, different ethnicity, people from different areas, people with different jobs. And that means you get a good perspective on the people who are there. I've sat in interview panels before, and I take a note. I score people. I ask them all the same question, and I use a scorecard to see how each one stacks up. And I've set that out for other people in the team. I remember once, halfway through the interview, I realized I was the only one using the scorecard. The other 2 people on the panel had stopped. And at the end, it was obvious to me who was the person we really wanted. But the other 2 people on the panel had already decided who they wanted. And they chose somebody who they'd worked with in the past, who came from a good organization, but who actually wasn't the best candidate. And so when they started the job, they really didn't have the experience that we were looking for. They didn't have the qualifications we were looking for, and they underperformed, which was a great pity. So getting into your team the right people is terribly important. And I'm sure all of you have heard this sentence in English or a Spanish equivalent of it: the proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. Whether you're going to give a talk, whether you're going to carry out a new activity, always the preparation is good. And it's exactly the same thing with building up your dream team. If you prepare properly, make sure you've got that person's spec on board and that job description, make sure you interview, go through all the stages. It takes a long time and it's a lot of work, but it's well worth it, because the dream team will take you places that you cannot go with just any old team. So my third stage, and I've kept it simple, just down to 3 stages, is to induct your new staff. And I noticed that Roberto talked about this as well. The induction makes a huge difference. It's so easy just to expect people to show them their desk and then think they're going to do the work. But if you take time on that first day to introduce them to the organization, how you see it, to the work you expect them to do, and to their work colleagues, to get somebody perhaps to be a buddy with them for a few days and to show them around and to help them, that can make a world of difference. That brings them into the team. Make sure they've met everybody they're going to work with. Even if it's quite a large organization, take them into other departments, show them how those work, introduce them, so then they can make their way in the organization and they can make friends. That induction will put your new person a long way ahead of where they would be if you just ignored them. Or if you just said hello to them, this is your desk, get on with it, which I'm sure you wouldn't do. So then you set the goals. You become less of a manager and more of a leader. As a manager, you set the goals of telling them what they need to do and the deadline by when it should be done. You check with them again before you get to the deadline. How are you doing? Do you need help? How is this going? And then when they've got to the deadline, they've done the tasks, you review them and look at it. How did that task go? And if it went really well, you praise them. If it didn't go so well, look at how you can help them to perform better next time. But as a leader, you're setting the far goals of the organization. You're talking with passion about the organization. And Ken said that persistence is the key characteristic of leaders. And it's true that this drives the organization forward, drives your team forward, by them knowing that you're going to make this happen. But there's also other important qualities in there, one of which I think is integrity. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. If you're asking your staff to stay late and work, then you should be staying late and work. And you should be honest. If you're honest, if you have integrity, if you believe in the organization and show that you believe in the organization, then your staff will follow you. And not just for their individual goals, but as a leader, you'll set the far goals. If you're the CEO of the organization, you'll be looking a long way into the future. And those people will know, who work for you, will know and understand where you're going. They'll know the stepping stones to how to get there. And they'll be inspired by your leadership. So you build your dream team and you take it out on the road and you ensure that you have the right people on board in the right place. Sometimes when you first become a manager or you first become a leader, then you're not sure how you should act. And then I think you fake it until you make it. You do what you know is right. you lead. In those early days, when you're first starting to work, then you should be following your examples. Who are your heroes? Which people have inspired you in the past? How did they act? And you go and you take over that role. You are an actor for a while, and then it'll become second nature. Once you've done it a few times, it becomes much, much easier. The same with anything like public speaking. If you've spoken in public for the first time, it's always difficult and nervous making. But if you persist, it becomes second nature. And it's the same with teams. You build and create a really good team, that team will follow you anywhere. And they will work with you to achieve the goals you're trying to achieve for the organization. So I've talked fairly quickly, probably just for about 15, 20 minutes here, but I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions. So I see Maria's back on my screen. Hi, Maria.
Hello. Hello. Thank you, John. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think we are ready here to tackle zombies in our team. And also we really connected with the session that we had, because we worked on to demonstrate that Teams is important. Teams is something that you should integrate everywhere. And John just mentioned at the end that very nice quote. I want to translate it to Spanish. Thank you very much again, John. It was really helpful to connect everything together. And I feel that we have probably some questions here. Rosa, thank you very much for all the translation that you did for us. So thank you again.
And whilst people are preparing their questions, I should just mention my book, which is Fundraising and Zombies.
Yes, sure.
So I was so interested in this subject that I actually wrote a book about it, and it's been translated into Spanish, so you can acquire a copy. And if you talk to Maria and Rosa about it, I'm sure they'll be able to tell you how to get hold of a copy.